The moving truck arrived at 7:12 on a Saturday morning while standing barefoot in my kitchen, drinking coffee from a paper cup because I still had not unpacked my dishes, when a diesel engine growled outside. Through the window, I saw 6 people climbing out of 2 vehicles behind the truck. My parents stepped from their gray SUV. My older sister, Vanessa, emerged from a minivan with her husband, Eric, and their 3 children. The kids carried pillows. Eric carried a television. Vanessa walked toward my front door holding a folder and smiling like she had just won something. Then my mother used the brass knocker and called, "Maya, open up. We need to start assigning bedrooms." I stood frozen in the middle of the kitchen. Until that moment, I had believed my family was merely angry that I had purchased a house without consulting them. I had no idea they thought the house belonged to them. My name is Maya Ellis. I was 35 years old, unmarried, and employed as a payroll systems analyst in Columbus, Ohio. For 11 years, I had lived in small apartments, driven old cars, declined expensive vacations, packed my lunch, and transferred part of every paycheck into an account labeled Freedom. My parents teased me for being cheap. Vanessa called me boring. Eric once laughed because I repaired a 6-year-old television instead of replacing it. None of them knew the exact amount I had saved, because whenever money came up, my family treated my bank account like a public resource. The house was not a mansion. It was a 3-bedroom brick home on Hawthorne Lane with a narrow driveway, an unfinished basement, and a maple tree leaning slightly toward the street. The kitchen cabinets were outdated. One bathroom had pink tile, and the garage door complained every time it opened. But the roof was new, the neighborhood was quiet, and the monthly mortgage payment was lower than my rent. More importantly, every inch of it was mine. I had found the listing late one Tuesday night. By Thursday, I was walking through the property with my real estate agent, Simone. By Friday afternoon, I had made an offer. The seller accepted it that weekend. I did not tell my family until after the inspection because I knew exactly what would happen if I mentioned it earlier. My father would question the neighborhood. My mother would demand to see every room. Vanessa would explain why I needed a larger house. Eric would suddenly know a contractor, a lender, and a better property that somehow benefited him. When I finally told them, I expected criticism. I was not prepared for panic. We were having Sunday dinner at my parents' house. My father was slicing roast beef while my mother complained about the price of groceries. Vanessa and Eric were arguing quietly about their oldest son's school fees. I waited until everyone had food before placing a photograph of the house on the table. "I bought a home," I said. My father stopped cutting. My mother stared at the photograph. Vanessa's fork struck her plate. "You did what?" my mother asked. "I closed on Friday. I move in next week." "You closed already?" my father said. "Without telling us?" "I'm telling you now." "No," my mother snapped. "You're announcing it now. That's different." Vanessa grabbed the photograph. "How many bedrooms?" "3. Her eyes moved quickly over the image. "And a basement?" "An unfinished one." She glanced at Eric. Something passed between them, something too fast and familiar to be spontaneous. My father dropped the carving knife onto the cutting board. "You had no right to make a decision this big without consulting your family." I almost laughed. "I'm 35. I used my money, my credit, and my name. Whose permission did I need?" "That attitude is exactly the problem," my mother said. "You always act like you're separate from us." "I am separate from you. I'm your daughter, not a department in a family corporation." Vanessa pushed the picture back toward me. "Can the basement be finished?" "It could be." "How quickly?" "I don't know. I'm not finishing it anytime soon." My mother stood so suddenly that her chair scraped the floor. "This is unbelievable." I looked from one face to another. No one congratulated me. No one asked what I liked about the house. They appeared less like relatives hearing good news and more like investors discovering that a deal had collapsed. "What exactly is happening?" I asked. My father wiped his mouth with a napkin. "Nothing. You have clearly made your choice." Vanessa leaned back and folded her arms. "I hope you enjoy all that empty space." That sentence followed me home. Over the next week, my mother called 14 times. At first, she asked ordinary questions about the closing. Then the questions became oddly specific. Were all 3 bedrooms upstairs? Did the basement have a separate entrance? How large was the backyard? Was there room for a second refrigerator? Had I changed the locks? Could the school bus stop nearby? I answered less each time. On moving day, my parents did not come. Vanessa sent a message saying the children had activities. I told myself I did not care. Simone helped me carry boxes until noon, and 2 co-workers brought pizza. By sunset, my bed was assembled, my couch was in the living room, and the keys were sitting in a blue ceramic bowl near the door. I walked through every room after everyone left. The house creaked as the temperature dropped. For the first time in years, no neighbor's television vibrated through my wall. No one stomped above my ceiling. I felt exhausted, proud, and completely at peace. That peace lasted less than 72 hours. When I opened the front door that Saturday morning, my entire family was waiting on the porch. Behind them, 2 movers were lowering a mattress from the truck. "What are you doing here?" I asked. My mother stepped forward. "We're already behind schedule." "Behind schedule for what?" Vanessa lifted the folder. "Moving." I looked past her at the truck. The rear door was open. Inside were beds, boxes, bicycles, plastic storage bins, and a dining table I recognized from Vanessa's apartment. "You're moving where?" She laughed as though I were joking. "Here." "No, you're not." My father's expression hardened. "Maya, don't start this in front of the children." "I didn't start anything. Why is there a moving truck outside my house?" My mother lowered her voice. "Vanessa and Eric have until Monday to leave their apartment. We planned this months ago." "You planned for them to move into a house I had not even bought." "We knew you were looking," Vanessa said. "I never told you that." "You've talked about buying for years," my father replied. "We assumed you would eventually stop wasting money on rent." I stared at him. "You assumed I would buy a house and give it to Vanessa?" "Not give it to her," my mother said. "Share it with her family." "Why?" "Because she needs it." Vanessa's youngest daughter began swinging her pillow against the porch railing. Her sons were arguing over who would get the front bedroom. Eric avoided looking at me. I stepped outside and pulled the door shut behind me. "Everyone needs to leave." My mother blinked. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. The truck, the cars, all of you, leave." Vanessa's smile disappeared. "Where are we supposed to go?" "That is a question you should have answered before loading a truck." "We would pay something," Eric finally said. "How much?" He looked at Vanessa. "How much?" I repeated. "We haven't worked out the numbers," she admitted. "Then you plan to move 5 people into my home without discussing rent, utilities, food, repairs, privacy, or a move-out date?" My father pointed toward me. "This is your sister. Stop talking as if she's some stranger trying to cheat you." A stranger would have asked. My mother reached for my arm. "We are not arguing on the porch. Let us inside and we'll explain everything." "No." Her face changed. The soft, injured expression disappeared, and beneath it was anger. "You are being selfish." "No, I'm protecting the home I spent 11 years earning." Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. "So you're going to let your nieces and nephews become homeless?" I looked at the children. That was the trap. The adults had made a reckless decision, but they had brought the children to my doorstep, so refusing them would look cruel. I crouched in front of the kids. "None of this is your fault, but you aren't moving in today." The oldest boy looked at his mother. "You said Aunt Maya already said yes." I stood slowly. Vanessa looked away. That lie settled something inside me. Until then, a small part of me had wondered whether there had been a misunderstanding. There had not. Vanessa had told her children they were moving into my house. She had told movers. She had probably told friends and teachers. She had built an entire plan around the belief that public pressure would force me to surrender. I turned to the movers. "I am the homeowner. No one has permission to move anything onto this property." One of them nodded immediately. "Understood." Vanessa spun around. "Don't listen to her. We paid for 4 hours." "I don't care what you paid," I said. "Nothing comes off that truck." My father stepped closer until we were almost face to face. "You will regret humiliating this family." "No, you will regret assuming my front door was unlocked just because we share DNA." I went inside and locked it. For 20 minutes, they knocked, shouted, rang the bell, and called my phone. My mother cried loudly enough for the neighbors to hear. Vanessa accused me of destroying her children's lives. Eric threatened to have the movers unload everything on the lawn. My father said he had helped raise me and was entitled to expect cooperation. I stood behind the curtains recording everything. Eventually, the moving truck left. My family remained in the driveway. I called the non-emergency police number and explained that people were refusing to leave my property. When a patrol car turned onto Hawthorne Lane, they finally drove away. That should have ended it. Instead, it was the beginning. By Saturday afternoon, relatives began calling. My aunt said my mother was having chest pains because of me. My cousin asked why I had purchased a family-sized home if I planned to live alone. My grandmother left a voicemail saying God did not bless people so they could close their doors to relatives. Someone posted online that Vanessa and her children had been abandoned during a housing crisis. My name was not used, but everyone knew who the villain was. I ignored the calls until my uncle Marcus contacted me. He was my father's younger brother and the only relative who asked a question before offering an opinion. "What happened?" he said. I told him everything. There was a long silence. "They didn't tell you about the lease?" "What lease?" "Vanessa and Eric stopped paying rent 3 months ago." I sat down. Uncle Marcus explained that Eric had lost his warehouse supervisor position in January. Instead of telling the family, he had spent several months pretending to go to work while searching for something similar. Vanessa's salon hours had been reduced. They borrowed money from my parents, but rather than use all of it for rent, Eric invested part of it in an online business promoted by a former co-worker. The business vanished. Their landlord filed for eviction. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" I asked. "Your mother said she had a solution." "My house. That's what it sounds like. But I hadn't even bought it. They assumed you had more savings than you admitted. Your mother told Vanessa you would either buy a place or help with a deposit." I felt sick. My years of saving had become their emergency plan without my knowledge. That evening, I changed every exterior lock, installed cameras, and placed a locking cover over the garage release. Simone referred me to an attorney named Carla Mendoza, who told me not to allow anyone to stay even one night unless I was prepared for the legal complications of removing them later. She advised me to save every message and clearly state in writing that no one had permission to enter or reside in my home. I sent one message to the family group chat. "For clarity, Vanessa, Eric, and their children do not have permission to move into or store property at my home. Anyone entering without my consent will be reported for trespassing. I will not discuss this further through relatives." My mother responded within 30 seconds. "You have changed." I wrote, "No, I finally have something you cannot take from me." Then I left the chat. For the next 2 weeks, the pressure became relentless. My parents appeared at my workplace and waited in the lobby until security asked them to leave. Vanessa sent photographs of the children sleeping on air mattresses in my parents' living room. Eric messaged me privately and said he understood my hesitation, then asked whether they could use the basement temporarily. My grandmother mailed me a Bible with a passage about generosity highlighted. Someone contacted my employer and claimed I was emotionally unstable. The strangest moment came when I received a call from a contractor asking when he could inspect my basement. "What contractor?" I asked. He gave me my mother's name. She had requested an estimate to turn the basement into 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, and a kitchenette. I told him the property owner had authorized nothing. That night, I called my mother. "You tried to hire someone to renovate my basement?" "We were only collecting information." "You gave a stranger my address and sent him to my house because you refused to discuss practical solutions." "The practical solution is for Vanessa and Eric to find somewhere else to live." "With what money?" "With jobs." "Eric is trying." "So am I. I tried for 11 years." My mother began crying, but I no longer reacted the way she expected. I had heard those tears when she wanted money, obedience, forgiveness, or silence. They were real tears, but they were also a tool. "I don't understand how I raised someone so cold," she said. "You raised someone who learned that every time she shared, you asked for more." She hung up. 3 days later, Vanessa arrived alone. She stood beneath the porch camera, holding no bags, no children, and no folder. I considered ignoring her, but something in her posture looked different. I opened the door without removing the chain. "I want to apologize," she said. "For which part?" "All of it." I waited. She stared at the porch. "Mom told me you knew." "Knew what?" "That we had to leave our apartment. That you were looking for a house partly because we needed somewhere to go." "Why would you believe that?" "Because she said you offered." "I didn't." "I know that now." "Did you tell your children I agreed?" Her jaw tightened. "Yes." "Did you book movers before speaking to me?" "Yes." "Did you intend to pay rent?" "We would have eventually." "That means no." She exhaled sharply. "Can I come inside?" "No." Her eyes lifted. "You think I'm going to take over your house?" "I think you already tried." She began crying, but unlike my mother's tears, Vanessa's seemed mixed with embarrassment. "You don't understand what it's like to have 3 children watching everything fall apart." "No, I don't. But I understand what it's like to be treated as less important because I don't have children." "That isn't fair." "It's exactly what happened. Everyone decided that because I'm single, my rooms were spare rooms. My money was extra money. My time was free time. Nobody looked at this house and saw the life I built. You saw unused space." She wiped her cheek. "I was desperate." "Desperation explains what you did. It doesn't excuse it." Vanessa looked toward the street. "We can't stay with Mom and Dad much longer. Dad and Eric nearly fought yesterday." "Then you need another plan." "There is no plan." "There are shelters, short-term rentals, assistance programs, relatives who have been criticizing me, and jobs neither of you wants because they pay less than your old jobs. Those choices are unpleasant. That doesn't make my house the only choice." She gave me a bitter smile. "You always did think you were better than me." "No, Vanessa. You needed me to think I was less important than you." Her face hardened, and for a moment I saw the sister who had arrived with the truck. "One day you might need family." "I needed family when I bought my first home. You brought an invasion." I closed the door. The following Monday, my camera notified me of movement while I was at work. I opened the live feed and saw my father standing at the side gate. He tried the latch, looked toward the street, and then used a screwdriver to remove part of the lock. My mother waited in the SUV. I called the police. By the time officers arrived, my father was inside the backyard. He claimed he was checking the foundation because I had mentioned water in the basement. I had never mentioned water. He insisted that parents could not trespass on their child's property. The officer explained that they absolutely could. I could have had him arrested. Instead, after speaking with Carla, I issued a formal trespass notice. My father signed it while staring at me as though I had betrayed him. "You called the police on your own father," he said. "You broke into your daughter's yard." "I was trying to help." "Help that requires a screwdriver is usually called something else." After that, the family went quiet. For nearly a month, there were no calls, surprise visits, or messages from distant relatives. I painted the living room, replaced the bathroom mirror, and planted herbs near the kitchen window. I began inviting friends over on Fridays. The house slowly stopped feeling like a battlefield and started feeling like home. Then Uncle Marcus called again. "Your parents are selling their house," he said. "Why?" "To pay Vanessa's debts." I closed my eyes. "They're doing what?" "They took out loans to keep her family afloat. Your father used most of their emergency fund. Now he says selling is the only option." My first instinct was guilt. It arrived automatically, trained into me through years of family emergencies. Then I asked the question no one in my family ever asked before making decisions. Did anyone request a complete list of Vanessa and Eric's debts? Uncle Marcus paused. I don't know. Has Eric found work? He started delivering packages. What about Vanessa? She's taking more clients. So why sell the house now? Your mother says they need enough money to start everyone over. That phrase bothered me. Everyone. 2 days later, I discovered why. A real estate agent called me at work. She said my parents had listed their home and wanted to purchase a property with an accessory dwelling unit. Because my name appeared as a proposed co-borrower, she needed permission to check my credit. I am not buying a property with them, I said. She apologized and sent me a copy of the preliminary information sheet. Under proposed occupants were my parents, Vanessa, Eric, their children, and me. They had rebuilt the same plan. Since they could not force their way into my house, they intended to sell their home, combine the proceeds with my income, and purchase a larger property where all of us would live. They had included my salary based on a pay stub I had given my father years earlier when helping him compare insurance plans. I froze my credit and called Carla. She sent cease and desist letters to my parents and the agent. Then I requested a meeting at Uncle Marcus's office with my parents, Vanessa, and Eric. I wanted witnesses, cameras, and neutral ground. They arrived looking exhausted. My father had lost weight. My mother's hair was pulled back without its usual careful styling. Vanessa sat beside Eric, who stared at the floor. I placed the information sheet on the table. Who added me to this? My mother folded her hands. We were going to discuss it with you. After submitting my information? It wasn't an application yet, my father said. You listed my income. Because the numbers would not work without it. That sentence describes this entire family. Vanessa looked at the document. I didn't know they included you. My mother turned toward her. Don't start. No, Vanessa said. You told me Maya wanted to sell her place and join us after she calmed down. I laughed once, but there was nothing humorous in it. You are still lying to everyone. My mother's face reddened. I was trying to keep this family together. You aren't keeping us together. You're arranging us like furniture. My father struck the table with his palm. Enough! We sacrificed for both of you. We paid for food, clothes, school, and everything else children need. Now, when we need cooperation, Maya acts like we're criminals. You chose to have children, I said. Raising us was your responsibility, not a loan. He leaned back as if I had slapped him. Eric finally spoke. This is my fault. Everyone looked at him. He explained that his job loss was only part of the problem. For almost 2 years, he had hidden credit card debt, personal loans, and losses from sports betting. He had used money Vanessa believed was paying rent. When the eviction notice came, he confessed only enough to make it seem like temporary unemployment. My parents gave them nearly $20,000, but much of it went toward debts Vanessa had not known existed. She turned toward him with a face emptied of color. How much do we owe? He whispered the number. It was more than $80,000. My mother covered her mouth. My father stared at Eric as though considering violence. Vanessa stood so quickly that her chair fell backward. You told me it was $12,000, she said. I was trying to fix it. With my parents' retirement money? I thought I could win it back. Vanessa slapped him. Uncle Marcus stepped between them before the situation became worse. For the next hour, every hidden decision surfaced. My parents had drained most of their savings. My father had borrowed against the house. My mother had been secretly paying the children's school expenses. Vanessa had continued spending to maintain appearances because she believed my mother's promise that they would soon live in my home without rent. Eric had opened another credit card after the eviction process began. The house had never been the problem. It was the fantasy that my stability could erase everyone else's choices. My father looked at me across the table. What are we supposed to do now? It was the first honest question he had asked. You stop making secret plans, I said. You stop using one person to rescue another. You meet with a bankruptcy attorney and a financial counselor. Dad, you speak to your lender before selling anything. Vanessa, You separate your finances from Eric's until you understand every debt. Eric, you get professional help for the gambling, and nobody uses my name, income, credit, or property again." My mother looked wounded. "So you'll give advice, but no help?" "I will pay directly for 3 sessions with a licensed financial counselor. I will not hand anyone cash, co-sign anything, provide housing, or become responsible for debts I did not create." "That's all?" she asked. "That is more than you were entitled to after trying to use my identity." Vanessa sat down slowly. "I'll take the counseling." Eric nodded. My father said nothing. My mother cried quietly. The months that followed were not miraculous. There was no sudden apology that repaired everything. Vanessa and Eric separated. She moved with the children into a modest 2-bedroom apartment and worked 6 days a week. Eric entered a gambling recovery program, took a night shift warehouse job, and began making court-ordered support payments. My parents avoided selling their home after negotiating with the lender, but they postponed retirement and cut nearly every unnecessary expense. For a while, they blamed me. Then the bills kept arriving, and blame became less useful than reality. Vanessa and I began speaking again almost 9 months after the moving truck appeared. The first conversation lasted 8 minutes. The second lasted 20. She did not ask for money or housing. She told me she had apologized to the children for lying about the move. She said the oldest boy still remembered me kneeling on the porch and telling them the situation was not their fault. "I hated you that day," she admitted. "I know. I thought you were choosing a house over us." "I was choosing myself," she nodded. "I didn't know there was a difference." A year after I moved in, I invited Vanessa and the children to a small cookout. My parents were not invited. I was not ready. Vanessa arrived carrying a plant in a yellow pot. She stopped in the doorway and waited. "You can come in," I said. Her eyes moved toward the staircase, then the living room, remembering the home she once believed she could claim. "I never congratulated you," she said. "The house is beautiful." It still had pink bathroom tile. The basement remained unfinished. One kitchen drawer stuck during humid weather, but the walls were covered with photographs, the backyard held a vegetable garden, and the maple tree had survived a violent winter storm. "Thank you," I said. Her children ran outside. Vanessa placed the plant on my kitchen counter. "What kind is it?" I asked. "A peace lily." I raised an eyebrow. She laughed. The name was not intentional. For the first time in a long while, we laughed together. My relationship with my parents took longer. My father eventually apologized for entering the backyard, but he still described it as checking the property. My mother apologized for including my income on the housing paperwork, though she insisted fear had clouded her judgment. I accepted the apologies without pretending they erased what happened. Forgiveness, I learned, did not require reopening every door. 2 years later, I converted one of the bedrooms into an office. The second became a guest room. Sometimes friends stayed there. Once, Vanessa and the children slept over when a winter storm knocked out power at their apartment. They arrived with overnight bags, not furniture. They asked before using anything. In the morning, Vanessa washed the sheets and left a thank you note on the counter. The basement remained empty for a long time. My family used to speak of empty space as evidence that I had more than I deserved. Eventually, I understood that empty space could also mean possibility. I saved again, hired a licensed contractor, and turned half the basement into a recording room where I narrated financial training courses for work. The other half became a small library. The day construction ended, I stood downstairs listening to the unfamiliar silence. I remembered the contractor my mother had sent without permission. I remembered the moving truck, the pillows, the mattress, and the children choosing bedrooms in a house they had never entered. I remembered how close I had come to opening the door out of guilt. Had I allowed them inside, they might have stayed for years. Their debt would have followed them. Their arguments would have filled the rooms. My savings would have disappeared into groceries, utilities, repairs, school expenses, and emergencies. I would have become the cruel one whenever I finally asked them to leave. Instead, One locked door forced every adult to face the truth. My parents learned that love did not authorize them to control their daughters. Vanessa learned that desperation did not make deception harmless. Eric learned that hidden debt eventually demands payment. And I learned that boundaries often feel cruelest to the people who benefited from you having none. I still keep my keys in the blue ceramic bowl beside the front door. Every evening when I hear them land against the bottom, I remember what they represent. Not just a mortgage, not just a building. They represent every lunch I packed, every trip I declined, every promotion I worked for, and every time I quietly chose my future while other people called me boring. My family once looked at my home and saw a solution to their problems. I looked at it and saw proof that my life belonged to me. That was why they were furious, and that was why I never handed them the keys. Was Maya right to call the police on her own family, or should she have allowed them to stay temporarily? Tell me what you would have done. Like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this.